Haemorrhage. Super fun and catchy gore grind from Spain. You know, there was an issue of Sloth Zine where the author discussed Haemorrhage and how great they were, and it's important to remember that the author hated grindcore, hated gore grind, so if this band was good enough to sway his opinion, then you know that there was something special about Haemorrhage. Try to think of a mix between the more punk early Carcass albums, a bit of Terrorizer, a bit of the early Entombed albums, and a whole bunch of other metal bands. They have a ton of influences. This mix of styles and their riffs, song structures, and sounds is probably what can allow them to appeal to different parts of the metal audience. For me though, it's the gore and fun factor. Besides, what's cooler than a band having its own mascot? You have Eddie, Vic, Murray, and then there's Dr. Obnoxious. Just look at the music videos he's in. He's hell on earth. Emetic Cult is a complete mudfest. It's Haemorrhage at their most primal. And of course before they could establish their own identity and their own sound. It has more of a death metal sound than their later works because this is one of the few albums that uses a double bass pedal for the drums. From here on, the drummer would use a single bass pedal to steer away from the death metal sound. And then Groom comes in. Holy crap! Think of the intensity of World Downfall, but in a gore grind sense. The production was nastier and heavier, but everything was much more powerful than on the first album. Instead of death metal with the early Carcass gore grind, you have more of a death grind sounding gore grind album. Sounds a lot to me like Terrorizer. Think death metal meets Terrorizer, then add gore grind to the mix. The result is catastrophic. Those guitar riffs will stay in your head forever. Anna's bass is always satisfying to hear, especially on this album, because it's more distorted and rumbly. But we can't forget Lugubrious. This guy can scream, growl, gag, and screech like mad. His vocals are always varied and addicting. And on this album particularly, you can tell that he is having the time of his life. My favorite songs on here are Rectovaginal Fistula and In Nephritic Blue. Then you get to Anatomical Inferno. The vinyl obviously has a way better artwork than the CD, but the vinyl also has more songs. As an album, it's a more refined and shorter version of Groom. It seems that this album also has a high number of iconic songs that everybody likes. Worm-Infested Cavities, I'm a Pathologist, Surgery for the Dead. What I really like about Haemorrhage and this album are the imaginary music videos that play in your head as you listen to these songs. With the songs being slimy, you can imagine any massacre any way you want. Just think Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Haemorrhage in the background. Loathe Songs is a covers EP, and it would come with the vinyl version of Anatomical Inferno. This EP features covers of bands that influenced them. Bands like Entombed, Terrorizer, Cryptic Slaughter, Suicidal Tendencies. Some of these songs sound better than their originals, and others have been made to have more punk and grind sounds. Morgue Sweet Home would feature longer, slower songs, making the music a bit heavier. The production is cleaner and more refined, and it is awesome. But there are also some added special effects, such as chainsaw sounds and psychotic violins. Really nice. I really love the artwork of this album. And I love the general vibe and atmosphere of this album, too. You have songs such as Midnight Mortician, Obnoxious Surgeon of the Dead, and then the Forensic Requiems. Very nice. Definitely a classic Haemorrhage album. Sometime after that was released, we were treated with Hematology, which is a nice collection of material from splits, EPs, singles, B-sides, unreleased material. It's really nice. Most of these songs would end up making it to the album, so they would sound better, but as a whole, this album's a really nice listen. Of course, in the booklets, you also get the artworks, the behind-the-scenes stuff, you get some liner notes. Something I didn't mention was that the guitarist does all the artworks. He does all the drawings, he does most of the cover artworks for the albums, very talented guy. The band is definitely self-sufficient, and judging from this compilation right here, they're pretty prolific too. And then you come to Apology for Pathology, their first one on Relapse. It's their best one in years. Relentlessly heavy. And it's pretty fast the whole way through. There were a couple really high-quality music videos for the album too. Furtive Dissection comes to mind. Also, the production is a bit bigger. It's also slightly more compressed, but I think that adds to the sterile feeling. Hospital Carnage would come out later, and it would end up being more of the same. But I think that Hospital Carnage also has more special effects, and it also has one of the tightest drum sounds you'll ever hear. My favorite album by this band is Groom. Once you hear that one, go for Apology for Pathology. And then work your way to the other albums. You won't regret it.